It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine indeed. We are back once again with another recap reaction show to Obi-Wan Kenobi, and this time it's episode 4, and my guest is... It's not me. Oh no, the buttons aren't working. There we go. Mr. Mark Mulcaster.
Hello there. How you doing?
Technology is not being my friend today, so today's show is going to be entertaining for perhaps the wrong reasons.
I don't have a good feeling about this one. But hey, it's all good. How you doing, Brian? You all right?
Yep, I'm really good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm wonderful. Yeah. Good.
Let's start with the general question. Your overall thoughts of the whole episode?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, it was a bit short compared to some of the other episodes, but it was pretty kind of, action-packed. I mean, so far we've kind of seen like every episode is like some kind of echo to the main saga episodes. So obviously you can't escape the fact that this one was very much a New Hope, rescuing a princess again. But generally it's good, and it's good to see kind of Obi-Wan starting to kind of find his Force mojo a little bit and what have you, and more importantly T-47s on the screen. So I was well excited by that. How about yourself?
I had mixed opinions on it. I was a bit frustrated with the episode. It did one of these things, and it's a criticism I've leveled at all the Star Wars TV shows and so far, and that's the lack of discipline. Because they can choose how long an episode is, I think sometimes it makes life too easy for the writers, the directors, not to have too much discipline in terms of where the story goes, what they're trying to achieve. Very short episode, and from start to finish, I didn't know what the purpose of the episode was.
Well, yeah, I mean, in fairness, I get your point about the mixed duration lengths, because obviously it's something that in some respects I wonder if maybe they had a lot of criticism leveled at them by stuff like Rebels and Clone Wars and stuff like that, where you'd have these filler episodes, and I just wonder if they've kind of gone, right, how do we make each episode not a filler episode? And I think maybe one way we've done that is said, well, we'll just make it whatever the length it needs to be and not pad it out. In this occasion, I think actually they could have done with a little bit more time with those folk at the start, the other members of the path, as it were. I don't think there was really enough kind of like interaction between them, and so when they do arrive at the end, and obviously Wade or whatever his name is kind of gets shot down out of sky, the emotional impact wasn't really there, because it's like we've only just met him, and it's not like he had such a big kind of like impact on the screen. So it's yeah, I mean, I think it swings and roundabouts. With respect to this episode, I don't think actually the purpose of this episode was so much Obi-Wan rescuing Princess Leia again. I mean, and I think it's more to do with the focus on him actually kind of finding his Force mojo again, and actually starting to get back in balance with himself. We see right at the very start of the episode, he's struggling just to pull that little like credit chip or something across the deck and stuff. And then, but obviously by the end of it, he's kind of holding back water, and he's doing the Ewan kind of like lightsaber twirls and stuff like that. So he's kind of Obi's got his mojo back a little bit. So I think that was more of the episode, but they've just had to frame it in some kind of way whereby you've got to put the princess at peril a little bit, and you've got to give him something to do.
Yeah. The kind of episode kicked off with kind of a cool montage scene that kind of linked Crispy Kenobi, as I'm going to call him, with Vader, both in the back to tanks, kind of cross the images. It was a kind of cool montage, I kind of thought. And it kind of added a little bit of credibility to the previous episode where they're sort of burning Kenobi, and it didn't really appear in the episode too much like he was hurt too much. So this kind of gave it a little bit of...
little bit more depth to it, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, one thing I kind of noticed, I don't know if you did, have you noticed how like Vader's face mask when he's in the back tank is more akin to his actual breath mask from the helmet, and obviously there, Obi-Wan's is almost a bit like the Jedi rebreather that we see in Phantom Menace, and actually we see later on in the episode. But yeah, the shot kind of composition of that very, very nicely composed, so they juxtapose it against each other. I kind of think that maybe, considering Anakin is still burnt to hell, that maybe Obi-Wan's got the better Bacta, and maybe Vader needs to go and kind of buy from the same suppliers, because obviously his Bacta was working a lot better than Vader's. So, but yeah, but it seems to be kind of a bit of a trope now in the galaxy to jump into a tank of Bacta and have flashbacks.
Maybe Bacta's just a placebo.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's just...
It's not helping Vader because he doesn't want to be healed.
Yeah, I mean, his arm hasn't grown back.
Mr. Naylor, I think I've heard a few comments of this. Filler episode in a limited series. Yeah. And then Civilized. Is it a filler episode, or is it just...
Well, I suppose it... I mean, if it's pushing the plot along a little bit, then yes. But we're kind of now... Again, I don't really feel where we go from there. There's no obvious kind of trajectory. Where do they go back to the past? Which would probably make sense. That would be where the tension's going to be, because of the the tracker in Lola. But yeah, I mean, from a character development, it's we're always going to be a little bit limited because we know where they need to end up. But I kind of feel like the one thing that this series is now starting to really show is that, because it's got such a small core cast, I don't necessarily think you're able to branch out in new and unique different ways. There's not many avenues you can go down unless we kind of focus more on Reva, or we focus more on Tala, for example. We know where Leia's going to end up. We know where Kenobi's going to end up. And I wonder if that is not necessarily a negative thing, but it's obviously going to constrain. And maybe that's just something we just have to kind of get on board and accept, and then just kind of enjoy the ride.
So we met a new bunch of rebels.
Yep.
I guess we could... I think I've seen people online referring them as Saw Gerrera's group. And I didn't see that connection in the episode. I don't know if I missed something.
I mean, I could kind of maybe just get it from the kind of like the caves and that, but I don't know. I don't think they are. I think these, at the moment, these are completely disparate groups. These are, they said, but, they're not soldiers at the start of this thing, and their primary concern isn't about fighting the Empire. It's about rescuing people. It's about getting them to safety. And I wonder if there is if that's kind of their angle is they're I mean, they're clearly not the greatest of pilots and stuff like that. And I just wonder if perhaps that's where their focus is. It isn't to kind of draw attention by starting fights and blowing up garrisons and like fuel depots, but actually it's more about just making sure people get to safety, which would kind of coincide with that whole comparison everybody's doing to like the Underground Railroad system from America in the slavery time. So
yeah, I kind of felt a little bit the same with your criticism in terms of felt like we should have got to know them a little bit better. And I kind of wanted to get to know them a little bit better. I kind of thought they had kind of a cool look. We kind of had this build-up of the path and the Jedi all trying to get effectively help from these guys. So you kind of wanted to find out a little bit more about what's their motivation, what are they actually doing to help the Jedi, what happens to the Jedi next. Some kind of exposition as to what's going on there.
Yeah, because I mean, again, you kind of think that where they probably are is like a clearinghouse. So they smuggle the Jedi in. I don't know. They give them a bath and a new change of clothes, new ID, what have you, a bit of credits, and then they send them off, obviously, to go and kind of merge and blend into the background somewhere. So, I mean, I think there was never likely to be Quinlan Voss just kind of stood their way and to greet Obi-Wan or anything like that from that. But they are cool. I mean, and I liked the fact of the graphics, that kind of whole display. It very much kind of echoes the graphic display that we see in Home One in the Briefing and Return of the Jedi. It's got that vibe. It feels kind of like in era as well. It doesn't look too modern. So, I think there's all through this series, there's been a lot of care and attention to try and not necessarily overstep the bounds of design too much and try and keep it constrained into the era that we know.
And of course, on the reverse of that, we had Reva interrogating young Princess Leia, and she brought out evidence of the path and really getting quite aggressive in trying to get young Leia to tell her about this group and what she knows, where they could be. Again, they're hinting at Reva's past here. You've got the Jedi symbol there. Reva's sort of pain, almost, you would describe it as.
Yeah, the way it's kind of been ripped off kind of suggests that. I mean, I just wonder if scaring like a 9-year-old or 10-year-old is the way to kind of get information out of them. You wonder if like manipulation and kind of, playing more of a good cop rather than the bad cop might have done it. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just Leia because she might see through that because she's pretty sassy, but she kind of holds her own. And again, it's a great, obviously it echoes what we're going to see her go through in A New Hope. And so you kind of think, well, yeah, this maybe be part of the training to kind of get her to be able to withstand the probes and, and Vader as well, because one thing to go up against an Inquisitor and it's another thing to go up against the Dark Lord of Sith.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, Tala again is helping Obi-Wan in his quest to rescue young Leia, using her Imperial identity. She tries to get into the Inquisitor's lair. And again, I thought she kind of plays the role of the Imperial very well. And it was quite a nice little scene. I kind of thought it played out quite well. Where she became quite aggressive, very Imperial-like in the way that she would talk to the other officers in order to try and get her secret identity through the security checks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed with like Tala as a character. I think she's fantastic, and I really do hope they don't kill her off by the end of this series. It's that whole kind of, if you go in there and you make, you walk like you belong there and you talk with conviction, then and you pull rank at the end of the day, it's a military organization. People don't question it, really, do they? If you kind of put people on edge, if you kind of get them nervous and that, they just kind of just go and do it because they don't want to get shouted at anymore. And I think that was quite evident in that young officer. So she's pretty kind of wily. I really like her, and there you go. That's the Jedi Rebreather, which makes a return, which is fantastic. I'm glad that Obi's actually kept all this kind of like accoutrement to his, not just a belt, not just a lightsaber, but the Rebreather, because I guess you never know when you're going to get like.
He's had it in his pocket because obviously it came into great use in Tatooine.
Well, exactly. Unless, of course, he goes swimming in like the Dune Sea and stuff like that. But yeah, it's unless, of course, it's not just Jedi issue. Yes, we've seen the Jedi use it, but maybe it's more something that's slightly more kind of common. Like a miniaturized scuba tank, which is pretty much what it is, isn't it? But how he enters into the Fortress of Inquisitorius, or the Inquisitorius Fortress, whichever way around you want to look at it, it's straight out of, I think, Jedi Fallen Order. That is pretty much how Cal Kestis actually again kind of gets into that fortress. So it's kind of highlighting a weakness in that kind of fortress, and that swimming in the Dune Sea. Why not? I mean, sand gets everywhere, so just embrace it.
Whilst their sort of heroes are trying to infiltrate, Reva carried on her interrogation, not going particularly well. Little Leah's kind of facing up to it, and Reva starts taunting her with the droid there, which becomes significant later in the episode. Evil little droids. And again, I thought the acting fantastic.
Oh, I mean, I can't fault the acting by this young lady. I think she's fantastic. I think she is probably outshining everybody who is on screen with her. But she's got great chemistry with Ewan, and I think that is something that I hope they can develop. And I mean, we've still got 10 years between A New Hope, so there's options to do something else afterwards, so and as Chris is saying, there you go, perfect timing. The Jedi team reminiscent of a mystery person in Jedi Survivor Trail on that. So there's the connective tissues are really starting to kind of come out in that. And I just wonder, I almost thought that the character right on the left hand side, I wondered if that was Quinlan Voss, but the fact that Obi didn't stop there, didn't kind of mention him or anything like that, probably isn't.
So what do you think of it? Do you think it is just them collecting trophies, or do you think this is kind of like a precursor to little Grogu being collected for DNA and so on, in terms of the whole Palpatine kind of clone kind of thing, where they're collecting Jedi because they've been doing some experimentation on Jedi DNA?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, without kind of patting myself on the back, I said this yesterday on Making Tracks as well. I think that what they're doing, and they're not necessarily calling too much attention to it at this point, it's laying all those seeds to make the somehow Palpatine returns kind of line in Rise of Skywalker kind of mean something. So I think we're going to kind of step back in 3 or 4 years' time, and there's going to be all these little bits of kind of cloning tech and kind of hints where they may not necessarily pay much attention to. They're all going to be in the background. It's all going to be the maison scene, and suddenly it's just going to be like, well, it's been there all along. It's retconned in, but it then kind of makes that kind of Rise of Skywalker reveal kind of suddenly mean something. So I mean,
Paul asked the question, are they alive? Is it like carbon freeze?
I don't think they are. I think some of them looked a little bit petrified, like they would kind of started to decay a little bit. I don't think so necessarily.
Part of me wondered, are they going to have something like this, and are they going to find a station like this at some point further down the timeline, post sequel trilogy, unfreeze a whole lot of Jedi, and then thus have a whole lot of Jedi back to play characters with?
Yeah, Demolition Man in the Star Wars galaxy.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's get Wesley Snipes in. Yeah, that's what Terra Sinube and that. But I mean, I don't know, because it's hard to tell, because I think if they'd frozen them per se, maybe I'm being a bit literal, you'd kind of think that maybe they would have, in the design, maybe hinted that it might have been like frost or kind of condensation on the glass and stuff. I just wonder if it's a bit like, it's almost a little bit of a direct nod to Jurassic Park with the mosquito and the amber, and so if they can just kind of extract it, that would be my kind of thoughts on that. But I'm welcome to be wrong. And the torture chair,
tortured. That's what you do to little kids. Misbehave.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. I wonder how many parents who've got 3D printers have now suddenly started to 3D print a torture rack. They can start threatening their kids. But it's a callback to Force Awakens. Both Poe and Rey kind of end up in a similar kind of chair, being kind of like tortured and that by Kylo Ren, and even kind of Han Solo ends up in a kind of similar kind of chair in Empire Strikes Back. So it's it's all these kind of callbacks. I think it's quite nicely done.
Then, as Mr. Naylor asks, was it youngling Ross Speedman? Could have been.
It looks like it's about to take a shit, actually, to be fair. But I think I wonder if just because of like the length of time they spend on that shot, I wonder if it's just he's one of the kids. I've not compared him, but I wonder if he's one of the kids from that original flashback in part 1. It's just like they've just used him, and you can compare it and just go, oh my god, they nicked him from Coruscant, which would be interesting because that would then kind of suggest that this was something in motion from the exception of Order 66, pretty much. So they would so it should probably predate the Empire, this kind of notion, because obviously I guess to kind of put them into some kind of storage like this would probably mean that Palpatine would have those kind of plans in place already.
Yeah. Chris there mentioned that this is kind of like the Inquisitor's trophy case. I'm going to come back to that point in a minute because I noticed something else in the episode.
Go on.
So as Leia was continuing to get tortured, great facial acting there from the little actress.
Dentist chair. There you go.
There in the background, if you look where Tala is, if you look in the sort of main room where the Inquisitors are, they've got a whole display of lightsabers, youngling helmets and everything, which is not really apparent when the scene's playing out because your eyes aren't brought to the background, but I noticed all sorts of Jedi-related kind of trophies in the background there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't spot it first viewing, but second viewing, I kind of picked up on it when I was kind of like looking around the frame a bit more. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably more the overt trophy case. That's the one that you show when you're kind of like giving the grand tour to VIPs and stuff like that. You probably don't show them the corpses in the orange blocks.
There's definitely something to that. The Tala, obviously, her role became to kind of distract the Inquisitors to allow Obi-Wan to rescue Leia, which ended up being a relatively simple task in some regards, but it allowed for this kind of interesting scene where the kind of were blocked at one end of this corridor by the stormtroopers. The glass is breaking, the water's coming in, and it created a little bit of drama that was kind of missing from the episode, I thought, until that point.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong per se. I mean, me and Mark talked about this yesterday. It's a bit surprising just how easy that glass was to kind of like crack and kind of break like that. You'd kind of think if you've got glass and you're several hundred feet underwater, which is where we probably assume they are, that glass would be, inches thick and, transparent steel and all that. But hey,
obviously the Imperials, they don't do handrails and they don't do safety glass.
Clearly not. Exactly. But then again, the whole coming back to like the Force, Jedi Fallen Order, sorry, that's that kind of, there's a part in that game when you are in that fortress and it's kind of switched. It's Vader who's holding back the water as Cal Kestis escapes through. He kind of he goes through the glass and kind of swims away. So kind of an interesting kind of like juxtaposition. Probably like obviously unless you kind of you play the computer game, you're never going to know that. But what was interesting was I was surprised at how quickly the stormtroopers kind of drowned. It was almost like the water touched them and that was it. They were floating and bobbing up and down about. And you would have thought that stormtroopers could have been able to hold their breath a little bit longer than the length that they did. But it's great just seeing Obi with his lightsaber out and using it. Even when he goes back to rescue Leia and you've suddenly kind of you're plunged into almost perpetual darkness and then you just see the blue blade ignite. I think that's fantastic. that's in itself is kind of worth the price of admission in my house anyway. So,
and steal your line, he gets his Force mojo back.
Yeah, I think so. Just about, but I think it's you can see it. It's he's struggling there. He's not. I mean, if this was Clone Wars era Obi-Wan, he'd be doing that, and he'd be kind of like taking on by stormtroopers as they came through the door. I don't think he'd have a trouble. But even with the kind of lightsaber kind of combat through this episode, you kind of see how he's becoming a bit more fluent and a bit more fluid, and he's, like I said, he starts doing a bit more of the flourishes. But I think it's probably not until the very, very end that actually, when he kind of has that really nice touching moment with Leia, does he kind of really kind of almost start to kind of completely find himself back in balance, But it's a great shot, great scene, just getting all those guys kind of like engulfed in water like that, I think it's fantastic.
And Obi-Wan kind of makes it away. Tala's just rescued little Leia. They've gone through the blast doors. Obi-Wan's on his way. And troopers are kind of wiped out. And as you say, they become little sort of bobbing little troopers in a fish tank.
Yeah, Floatum and Jepson. Yeah. There's a purge trooper, which again, Jedi Fallen Order, that's where they were first, I think, discovered and debuted. And that's but that's, you can understand it. It's a very similar kind of time period. Again, that whole story centers quite heavily around Inquisitors and the fortress and that, so it makes sense. So it's quite nice actually seeing not only characters and situations and places from animation being brought into live action, but actually computer game content as well.
I kind of wonder if there's been so many hints to that game that could the character actually make an appearance in this series at all?
Cal Kestis, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of people kind of bring something like that up. I wonder. I mean, I suppose it depends when, really, because like if you bring him in too early and he's already an accomplished Jedi and Obi-Wan isn't, then does that kind of overshadow kind of like the Obi-Wan personal story about getting his kind of like the skills back? Again, the question is whether or not it matters that probably a lot of the audience wouldn't recognize him, or if it doesn't really matter these days. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if there's a second season, I could probably see that happening. I think this one's probably going to be a really tightly focused show around Kenobi and Leia. That, but tune in next week for Good Morning Tatooine to see that I've been proven completely wrong.
It then led on to what I can only describe as a very bizarre scene, where almost like a two Ronnies or Faulty Towers type skit where young Leia's hiding under the coat of Obi-Wan. Yeah. And as Tala and Obi-Wan disguised as an Imperial kind of march through the main hangar of Inquisitor HQ.
Yeah.
And you get that kind of little bizarre kind of thing. And I don't know if it was supposed to be a comedy scene, but it kind of felt that way.
I mean, you kind of then start to wonder if anybody in the Empire knows how to count people's legs, because there's like two sets of pairs of legs there. But yeah, I mean, if they had kind of put Leia on Obi-Wan's shoulders and her head was sticking through the the coat, that would probably been equally the same. I mean, I don't know what's worse actually, because to be fair, Obi-Wan's beard surely isn't Imperial kind of like regulation length. It's a bit scruffy. So any kind of officer, like a high-ranking officer, you would think would have just kind of pulled him up on that. So, but it's a quick and convenient way of getting through, I think. So.
Paul went there. I wasn't going to go there. Paul went there. Yeah. That kind of, and that's what that scene kind of what circled me back to the episode being short and maybe the writer not doing enough to fill the time. And it kind of felt you could have spent another 5 minutes finding something more intricate and elaborate for them to make that final escape, because this should be the high security Imperial base. It shouldn't be a case of just walking out with multiple legs under a coat. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you kind of, it's that whole thing, isn't it? It always seems to be that high security places have a lot of kind of security to keep people out, but getting out of them is really quite straightforward. And um, I mean, I suppose it's a bit of a trope to kind of have somebody fly in and kind of rescue them at the last minute, like the airspeeders do. But it kind of slightly felt a little bit Deus Ex Machina, just kind of came out of nowhere. And again, I think if there was more set up with those characters at the beginning, it might be something that would have worked a little bit better. Plus, also some of the CGI or some of the shots didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, and this is kind of I thought it was kind of like a great scene here. You've got a great visual, Reva coming out with the paratroopers, the stormtroopers behind. Then it didn't really do too much. You kind of got the snow speeders swoop in, cause
Air
some damage.
speeders, Brian. Air speeders are not snow speeders. They haven't been converted to snow speeders
Yeah,
yet.
same thing.
Sorry.
They'll always be snow speeders to me.
Yeah.
And they've swooped in, and it kind of looked okay in that shot.
Yeah.
And then you kind of flip it round, and it kind of looked like toys, just kind of.
Yeah. Well, that actually, to me, that looked like it was something straight out of Rebel Assault. Just real kind of computer gamey, kind of like where that third person view, but you're really close up on the ships. I think the scale was off really, and I mean, can't criticize massively too much. I mean, okay, yes, it's Star Wars, so we will criticize, but it is still kind of like CGI on a TV budget. But I don't know. I just wonder if they've had to cut something out or something along the lines to.
And this is kind of
a little bit rushed.
Going to be, and it's a harsh criticism because you're right. There's a TV budget there, but there seems to be this obsession that now they've got the volume that they can do endless backgrounds that stretch on and on and on and look amazing, and then you haven't put the time and money into this kind of shot, and you've almost got to then make the judgment: do we have this kind of shot in it? And that's got to be your conversation between ILM, your director, and your writers, as to we can't achieve this shot on a TV budget, but we can do this, and then you've got to start using the tools at your ability, because you didn't need to have this angle in this shot, because if I go back, a frame looks great there.
Yeah,
you're not seeing too much of them, but a great looking shot, and then you turn to that and it looks a bit naff.
Yeah, less is more.
Less is
I
more.
think it's normally the adage from that. But yeah, it just there probably were better ways of doing that. But it's I suppose from just to get them off the the fortress mat, it's a fairly quick and clean, easy way to kind of do it. The fact that Breather didn't really kind of like hurl a lightsaber at one of the airspeeders, I think suggests maybe that she's not as well controlled with it as potentially others, which is why she just picked up that big fuel cell and just lobs it.
Yeah.
Biggest bugbear across the whole of this series so far is the fact that those pilots were wearing like Resistance sequel era helmets rather than what we would used to see in like Empire Strikes Back and BOT with the slightly bigger helmets, which really annoyed me. But if that's the worst, I can live with it.
Yeah, this was another sort of bizarre shot where you kind of got the ship just kind of sitting there and her with the saber. It didn't work for me, so I was kind of disappointed with the whole sort of way that they concluded the base kind of arc. Up to then, I thought it kind of looked well, but the whole coming out with the multiple legs, the speeders, that didn't work for me. And I felt you could have done something different with that extra 10 minutes. That kind of maybe went a little bit to waste. But,
yeah.
That is what it is. You have to accept that there's TV budgets involved as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure probably a big chunk of that went to Ewan anyway, so to get him back on board. But I also wonder, they're calling these part 1, 2, 3, and 4. They don't give them like episode titles or anything like that. And I just wonder if this is definitely more like a whole binge watching kind of thing,
Yeah.
once all 6 are out and you watch it through, and then you kind of, we put it into kind of context, and maybe actually this is just a short chapter just to get us to the next point where, you couldn't go directly from
It does.
end of part 3.
I think you're right, because it kind of reminds me of something that Stargate did a few years back, where they tried to launch their own sort of online platform.
Right.
And to launch that, they did like an online series called Catherine, which was based around one character. And they released it in small, like 3-4 minute parts. And some of them were quite naff because the special effects were naff because they were doing it on a very low budget, so on. And at the end of it, they kind of chopped it all together, slightly re-edited, and released it as kind of like a movie. And it kind of worked as a movie far better than it did as the individual parts. So I do think there's maybe a lot to be said that watching this back as a 6-part run altogether might allow some of the flaws of the different episodes to not maybe hark so bad.
Yeah. I mean, then I suppose that kind of raises a question or the argument of why not just do Netflix and just chuck it all out in one go if that's the intention, And again, conversely, going back to almost the first point of discussion, if there's no limit to like how long your duration is, just put it out as a streaming film. If it's 2.5 hours, 3 hours, just do it. I mean, me and you will sit there and watch it. Everybody in the chat will sit there and watch it. I mean, some other people might take 6 weeks to kind of watch it all, but what's the matter?
Yeah. Having criticised that scene, the scene after was kind of one of my favourites in the episode, where Vader came walking in at great purpose and grabbed Reva. And I kind of criticised in the last couple of episodes the way that sort of you used Vader's force powers to sort of throw people about, and I thought those sort of wire work and everything didn't really work, but I thought it would look great in the way that it was handled here, that we enter the room at great force and then sort of grabbing her and throwing her up into the air there, and he kind of held her there, and I thought it was a great kind of look.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I haven't really seen that kind of like that kind of angle for Vader doing that before, so it makes it kind of dramatic, and it kind of just shows just how powerful he is. I wonder if from my perspective, actually, if I hadn't known that she was one of the main characters and she was probably going to live through this whole series, it was conceivable that Vader could have just snapped her neck right there and then. You failed me for the last time, and off you go. Because to be fair, with the exception of her, the other Inquisitors are kind of, I don't quite know what they're meant to be doing. They just seem to be just
I
there,
didn't take a screen grab of it, and I wish I had, but is it the fifth brother or the third brother? I forget.
Fifth brother.
Had a very wry smile on his face, like he was really enjoying the fact that Reva's going to get it here. Yeah. And I wish I grabbed a kind of a snap of that, because I thought it was like something there. But yeah, there definitely feels, why don't they get more involved? Why aren't they always quite there? They're kind of just lurking there in the background a little bit. But
I mean, maybe that's just down to basically they want to watch her fail. I think possibly that's what it is. They just want to watch her fail. Like, she's the one who stuck her neck out. She's the one who's kind of contacted Vader and set up some kind of agreement with him. And so they're like, okay, off you go. Let's watch her kind of go, arse over tit. So
Claire asked a great question. Why is she known as Reva and not just a sister?
That is a good question. I mean, they do refer to her at some occasions as the third sister, but not very often. It seems almost like it's where the fifth brother, I think he refers to her as the third sister as more of like a reminder that she is an Inquisitor. As such, she's part of the whole. But yeah, the fact that she seems to be very individual about.
She's a little bit like Boris, where her colleagues at work aren't particular big fans of her.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of you put up with her because really,
lack of options.
Yeah, lack of options. Waiting for somebody like some boss to kind of come in and just fire her, or in this case, snap her neck and that. So, as long as we get through this whole series and she doesn't get redeemed, I think I can live with her. Really, she has had some good scenes so far. I think Moses is a cracking actor, so can't really complain too much.
And escaping on the speeder with our heroes through all the sort of action, and they headed back to the rebels ship, and we kind of got this scene where they're kind of reflecting on the fact that Wade, who we didn't really know, has died, so we're all supposed to feel really sad, but we didn't really, because we didn't really know him. And you get like this lovely little moment between Leia and Obi-Wan again. Great action between the two, and we've had these kind of scenes in a few of the episodes now, which I've thought have been brilliantly acted, and I kind of thought it was a nice little ending to the episode.
Yeah. Excuse the pun, kind of touching, really, to be honest. And I think this is kind of comes back to what Deborah Chow said, really, isn't it? That it's a character study, really. The action seems to kind of play second fiddle to it a little bit. So I think it's those scenes and those moments have been kind of portrayed really well. So and I just quite like how I think Leia is she's getting all this experience for leadership. To lead the Rebel Alliance later on. She's kind of like she's even if she's not necessarily paying attention to it, it's all kind of soaking in, and I think that kind of empathy will kind of like come back to help her later on. Yeah,
and it led to the final reveal where Reva gets out of her trouble with Vader by saying that she's placed a tracker that's going to be following Obi-Wan, and they're going to be able to catch it, and proving what I've been saying for years. All droids are evil.
Yeah, the red light doesn't lie. Yeah,
red light doesn't lie. You get this cute little droid. You make your Mattel plushes that you announced today. It's part of Obi-Wan Wednesday. Who wants a little plush of an evil little droid who's going to dob them in and get them murdered?
Yeah,
terrible.
Pretty much. Yeah, and you can kind of think. Right now, I mean, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen next episode. And Martin Newbold, oh my God, that is
the worst comment I think we've ever had on any Good Morning Tatooine.
Yeah, we're just.
So I'm guessing your next episode I'm making tracks is going to be called "Hold Back the Reva."
I think it will. Yeah, hold back. There's a song about that, isn't there? I think.
Yeah.
Hold back. Anyway, but I mean, so yeah, for the tracking beacon. I mean, it was quite interesting because. I almost stopped when I first watched it. I almost stopped after she kind of says to Vader, "I've put a tracking beacon on them." I'm like, "Hang on a sec, have I missed something here? Did she throw one on a ship or something? Or I didn't."
I actually thought it was going to be a human, and I actually thought maybe Tala is a double agent.
Yeah, triple agent. Yeah, that I say, that would be good. That might be a little bit too complex for like Star Wars stories.
My other thought was it could be O'Shea Jackson because kind of was maybe wanting more from him in the episode, and she kind of said that they'd be following Obi-Wan around. But then we got the evil sign. It's a droid with the evil little red light, and we should all have known that from the start.
Yeah, exactly. And you wonder if this is where Vader gets the trick to do it in A New Hope. To fix the tracker beacon to the Falcon, and possibly even maybe why Leia kind of thinks that their escape from the Death Star was a little bit too easy.
Ask my question though: why does Leia then proceed in the rest of her life to go on to trust droids?
I don't know.
Put the secrets in R2 to save the whole of the rebels.
Yeah, fool me once, fool me twice. Yeah. All that.
And I still come back to the whole message to Obi-Wan now no longer makes any kind of sense. Years ago, you served my father. Maybe mention the fact that we spent a few weeks going around the galaxy together.
Yeah, maybe. But then who knows? He could just, bing, just wipe a memory. Just kind of like
maybe something's going to happen and it's going to really upset Obi-Wan in episode 6, and he's like, "Not helping you again. Had enough of you."
Yeah. Screw you. Yeah. Or maybe, yeah. I mean, there's multiple ways. I mean, yeah, the writer's kind of gone on record several times to say like we haven't screwed the canon yet. We've got 2 more episodes, so we won't have much longer to wait and see if he's bullshitting or not. So.
We'll just throw that one up there. Evil droids.
Yeah.
We've got 2 episodes to go. Leia is back with Obi-Wan. The rebels seem to be making their escape, but they're going to get tracked down by the Inquisitors once more. Vader is going to take a first hand, I think, in the whole attempt to capture them. Where do you think we're going to go in the next 2 episodes?
I don't know really. You kind of think that they're gonna have to obviously, but the Emperor's always going to be pushing them on. So, but surely you would think now that if Obi-Wan, they know that he's got Leia, they know that he's around, so surely they're just going to pile on more and more, and it's going to be Vader and Reva, and maybe even Vader and Reva kind of like trying to kind of like go one better on each other. I don't quite know exactly where this all ends, really. I mean, ultimately, Ben's kind of got he's got to go back to Tatooine, but B, he's got to kind of shake off the Empire. So does he kind of have to fake his own death or something? So, I mean, what does the chat think? They've been very punny so far today. I just wonder if they've actually got any serious comments. So.
Well, Elliot does say there that once they get tracked back to Alderaan, that's a bit tricky. They kind of. I feel like they've kind of got to avoid Alderaan, but I think we kind of would like to see Bale and Mrs. Bale again. Matt there on Phantom Tracks is obviously saying we want more Owen and Beru. I want to see them back in Tatooine. I've kind of said that from the off. I kind of want them to spend more time. Have some kind of storyline with Owen and Beru and little Luke.
Yeah, I kind of don't think that is resolved, and I mean I don't know necessarily if that's maybe the point. It doesn't necessarily need to be resolved. Claire's just saying Reva will protect Obi-Wan and allow him to return safe to Tatooine. I really hope that she doesn't turn right, and I really hope that she is just evil. I'd like her to get
killed outside Uncle Owen's house and buried in the sand, because that's kind of a thing now.
Literally what you don't see in Rise of Skywalker is actually Rey starts digging, and then she kind of like digs up the skeleton like head or something, and she's like, oh, let's move over there. I mean, the second season was. Yeah, I mean, I had heard rumours, actually, what Paul's saying is I had heard a few people had kind of said that they'd gone back and they'd kind of retroactively kind of changed the ending of this season to make it a little bit more open, so that there would be a second season. So be interested to see what they do with that. But yeah, I mean, as much as we have spent a long time on Tatooine, it feels like this year already with Book of Boba Fett, I kind of would like to see a little bit more of that relationship, and maybe to see how it kind of develops a little bit between Owen and Kenobi. And we haven't really seen Beru at all. I think she's been in a couple of shots in the distance, but that's about it. If that, I think so. Bonnie Pieces gets credited, so we should see her.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do. There doesn't seem to be a clear kind of path at all. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to maybe there's going to be a surprise in there, I think, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, I hope there's going to be a bit of a twist, because so far this story has been fairly obvious. I think for it's, I wouldn't say like it's not unoriginal or something like that, but you can, to a degree, you know where each episode is going to end up. I think when you start watching it, there's not been any major surprises. So it's just like a good comic book. That's how I'm liking this story. It's something we can kind of pick up and enjoy. It's visually interesting, and it's engaging for the 10-15 minutes that we read the comic book and that. So, but it's not really doing a huge amount for me to kind of blow my mind at this point in time.
What we haven't seen is Hayden as Anakin.
Yeah, that is the thing. We've only really seen Hayden in the tank, really, and that one shot last week on Maputo. I don't think they'd go there. Do you think? Or oh god, how would that work? That would blow some people's minds.
They'll meet and kiss, and last will be their first kiss.
God.
And it'll live forever. Yeah, there's a lot to be achieved in the 2 episodes of where characters need to end up.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? That's whether or not we need to see Kenobi get back to Tatooine. I mean, obviously we know he ends up back there, but we still got 10 years between the end of this series and A New Hope. If he goes back to Tatooine, surely that's the first place the Inquisitors will probably look. Or is that just, to my mind anyway, you're going to bring a lot of risk if you suddenly become, very kind of like public enemy number one to the Empire.
At some point, do you not have to wipe out the Inquisitors?
Yeah, I think so. I was wondering if maybe that could have been something they could have done in this episode. They could have destroyed the fortress, as a way to kind of, blow it up and stuff like that. But then potentially we've maybe not necessarily seen the Inquisitors being used to their full strength really so far. I think they've got a lot of potential. It would be great to see maybe Kenobi up against 3 or 4 Inquisitors, maybe in the next episode or something, and start to thin the herd a little bit. So actually, he gets rid of the 5th brother and he gets rid of the 8th sister and the 16th twin sister or whatever, and kind of thin the herd a little bit. So we start to kind of get back to just Vader and a couple others.
What's Yoda up to during all this?
I think he sat there on a log.
Relaxing.
Yeah, on a log, laughing, going, "Told you not to go to that Tatooine." Yeah.
Then he's always got to get to the point where he tells Obi-Wan, "No, there is another. Remember that little kid you spent the summer chasing around the galaxy?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I think Yoda's old enough and wise enough to kind of, I think he's got great faith in Obi-Wan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just left Obi-Wan with those instructions. He probably would have brought Obi-Wan with him to Dagobah. And so I just wonder if he's keeping an eye on things, but there's at no point does he feel like he needs to kind of reveal himself. Because again, it's like if he reveals himself and it turns out that he's not strong enough to defeat Vader, then we're totally stuffed, because then Ben's died, Yoda's died. Who's going to train Luke?
Yeah, there has to be something that brings Obi-Wan's mind back to Luke, and he's got his focus on Luke again. So there needs to be kind of like a clear path for him to comfortably go back to Tatooine and kind of chill there, build a house, and.
Well, yeah, because actually that's the one thing
Here's the best comment of the day. That's beating Marks. Yoda is making Grogu. Oh dear.
But who with? That is a question. Yeah, so or is he just laying a Grogu egg? It's like, so. But no, I kind of, now you brought it up, you kind of think, well, there's not been a point, I don't think, in this series that I've noticed whereby Ben has had a moment to even kind of think about Luke or anything like that, or it's either that or he's just so confident that actually with Owen and Beru he's safe, so he doesn't need to worry about them. Which, if that's the case, why would you then return to Tatooine? So
yeah, I think
sadly,
I know. I think on this note, Mr. Booker, that's
wins.
The perfect way to end the episode.
Yeah, and I tell you what,
and then Mr. Newbold saves the day as always. Make a root leaf stew. That's it. That's what Yoda's up to.
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah. But I tell you what, if Booker's up for it, next celebration, I'm going to pay for him to get Saddle the Yaddle tattooed onto his arm somewhere. I think that is just perfect.
I want to get a T-shirt that says "Ride me like a father."
There you go. That's a celebration merch.
I think that's needed for Celebration London.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's another one. The episode's gone mad. The Frog Lady from Mando. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Mic drop. Done. Go.
That's it.
Time to go to bed, everyone.
I think so. Appreciate everybody's comments in the show.
Yeah,
episode 4 was a weird one for me. Still not sure what I want to make of it. I'm going to go and watch it again for a third time. And there's a lot to happen in the next 2 episodes, so join us next week and we'll be recapping episode 5 and previewing what might happen in episode 6, because it's all got to happen in the next 2 hours of TV.
Yeah, or 1.5 hours.
Well,
or hour, depending on the end.
Yeah, 20 minutes. Could be, don't know. Mark, thank you for joining me again. Always
welcome.
good to speak to you about Kenobi.
Yeah.
And thanks, everyone. And we'll see you all next week.
Adios.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at Fantha Tracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow Fantha Tracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.